So
I mean, I don't know, man. That's.
So then, if a female starts taking steroids to become a man, and she goes into if she truly believes that she's a man and she goes into the male Olympics, then why would you be against that? Because she would have a very, very obvious downfall and a disadvantage in her side. Mm-hmm. So why would you be against that if she's willing to take that?
It's not even that I'm against it. Like, honestly, I don't give a shit about sports. I don't watch them. I don't compete in them. They're not my cup of tea. It doesn't really bother me if someone takes steroids and plays. It's whatever. It's just it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me is all.
So would you find a difference? Okay, so let me ask you a question. If I today was a female and I decided, or we'll say a female in general, but if she truly believed she was a man and she started taking chemicals to change her body and whatnot, and she was in the Olympics, in a man's Olympics, say she joined the MMA and she was in men's MMA.
Yeah,
there would be a very obvious genetic disadvantage in her side.
Sure.
But if she was willing to take that challenge to go against men and actually fight them, then
But let's take a guy like George St. Pierre. George St. Pierre wakes up tomorrow and wants to become a woman. He switches over to the female division. He's gonna fucking murder those women.
So now, is that where you have a problem? Is if a man goes into the
female?
But
it's not. No, it's both ways because there is that disadvantage there that there's really nothing to be done about it. It bothers me a little more so when it's a man who's a transgender going into a female sport because it is so much more significantly at that disadvantage. But it does go both ways for me. And again, I'm not against it. I don't have any moral issue. It just doesn't really make a lot of sense to me.
Gotcha.
Just doesn't make sense to me.
So how? Because I know there was a lot of topics and a lot of discussion on this. There was a few people that were complaining about. I can't remember his name, but he was a man that. He ended up joining the women's Olympics, and I think it was wrestling, or was it was.
I thought it was running.
Running? Okay,
running.
I think that's right. And yeah, he annihilated the women. Correct?
Yeah.
So what do you think? Like, how do we go about fixing?
I don't know, man. That's why it is such a muddy area of this topic because you can't segregate it. You can't say, okay, no, you can't compete in this. You can't take every sport and make it by gender, you know what I mean? Like open it up to both genders to compete on the same level. I think that's what I would prefer, but it also would have its own issues.
I think that would have an even more dramatic output or whatever for all the females if it was gender neutral, because then if you only have a few males that male to female and then they join the women's, then that's only two people they have to worry about. But if you switch it to neutral, then you have a whole shitload of men.
Sure. But at the same time, I can see that creating radical change among the way men and women interact. Because if every sport was like, oh, okay, cool, well, there's 6 guys on this team and 7 girls on this team, and they're just teammates, and they travel together and they practice together. That sense of camaraderie and like what it takes to, because it's not like a working environment. It's a much different experience being a member of a team, like an athlete on a sports team, than it is a drone in an office, or whatever, wherever you work. There's a sense of camaraderie there that builds, you know what I mean?
Well, yes, but there's not only team sports in the Olympics. There's a lot of solo sports.
Yeah, there's no simple answer. I don't have the answer.
Do we just start pumping everyone with steroids? Do we just get everyone jacked up, or do we just cut the Olympics altogether? Because at the end of the day, the Olympics, I love the Olympics, I do, but at the end of the day, when they go into certain cities, they just go in there and they just decimate.
That's the Olympics. I'm just talking sports. I'm not trying to bring an organization.
Okay, you're just
the Olympics have a whole another fucking barrel of issues.
Yeah, well, Oculus, I think is that what it's called? It wasn't Oculus? Sorry, what was that movie that you were telling me about?
Oh, Icarus.
Icarus, yes, yeah.
Fantastic documentary.
Yeah, no, I really wanted to get I seen the intro to it and it looks phenomenal.
Oh, so good.
But yeah, no, that the Olympics, that's a whole other basket of goodies.
Yeah, we'll dig into that one someday. Yeah,
absolutely. So changing the topics, and I was kind of curious. Have you ever had any near death experiences?
Yeah, I've had a few.
Yeah.
Had bad car wreck. I've had some close calls with drugs.
Okay. Let's hear about the bad car wreck. Because that was the first one that you said, so I feel like that must have been the most traumatic to you.
It's probably the first one that comes to mind. Yeah, I was just me and my buddy were headed back to my place from the city, and I pulled into a gas station to get some gas, and there was no pumps available, so I pulled right back out. I didn't check both ways, and I head on collision with a car coming at me doing about 70 or 80.
Wow, so he hit you.
No, I hit her.
You hit her.
I hit her. I pulled out when I shouldn't have pulled out.
Gotcha.
So it was my fault, but everybody walked away. There was no injuries, but
at 70 kilometers an hour.
I know, it's pretty crazy, right?
How does she not fly through the windshield?
Her car had airbags on the around the edges, as well as like one on the top of the windshield, one in her dash. She had a very safe car.
Wow.
Which is lucky because her car got it worse than mine, and mine was so bad that I had to kick my door open.
Wow.
Yeah, I couldn't. It was so deformed that I had to boot it open.
That's terrifying.
It was pretty scary. It was pretty scary.
I've only been in 2 different car wrecks. One of them, I guess, wasn't really a wreck. It was they both weren't exactly wrecks. But there was this one lady. I was at a stoplight. There was a truck ahead of me. I was parked behind him, and then there was another car behind me, and there was a lady. She was diabetic or something, and her insulin levels were extremely low. So you're basically under the influence driving.
Oh wow.
That's how it was explained to me. Is if your sugar levels are low, you're basically drunk, and it's considered to be under the influence.
Really, I didn't know that.
Absolutely, yeah. Huh. And she was driving, and she came around this turn. It was up right by Cornwall, JR's Pizza, around that set of lights. It used to be a set of lights. It's a roundabout now. And I don't know how fast she was going, but she was going fast enough that she hit this. And we're at a red light, so our brakes are on. She hit this vehicle, who then smashed into me, and then I smashed into the truck ahead of me and hit the hitch of his truck. And I got out of the vehicle. I was the only one that got out, and buddy came out of his truck, and I asked if he was okay, and he said, "Yeah, you just hit my trailer hitch." His truck was fine. His trailer, it was just my car was crumpled up. Yeah, it was like a xylophone or a little
an accordion.
Accordion. I said xylophone. My instruments, Jesus. Yeah. So and then the lady behind her, I looked back at her and I was like, "What in the?" And she just pointed at the thumb behind her, and the lady behind me, and I looked at this lady, and her head was buried in her hands. And I could just tell. I was like, this fucking girl. So anyways, I was like, what the hell are you doing? I told everyone, this is my first time I was ever in an actual car accident. And I didn't know what to do, so I just thought, let's get everyone into one parking lot. So I signaled everyone over to the meat shop, right across to the left.
Yeah, I know.
And the guy in the truck, he said, "Well, you only hit my trailer hitch. There's nothing really going on. My truck's not damaged. I'm just going to take off."
Can't do that.
And I just said, okay. I was never a part of anything so I had no idea. And there was so much panic. The light was green. There was cars honking. This was in the middle of rush hour. Everyone's freaking out. Yeah. And then the girl behind me, because her car was damaged badly because she got hit in the back and in the front. And so I said, let's go over to this parking lot.
I guess you would have too then.
Yeah, absolutely, because his trailer hitch really fucked up the front end of my car. So we pulled over, and then the girl behind me, she pulled over, and the girl that hit us, she drove through the lights and kept going, and she never stopped.
Can't do that either.
She went through lights, but she stopped and went into the flea market. She got out of her car, ran into the flea market right across the street. You know that old big greenhouse? Oh, yeah. So I went over there, my bumper hanging off, just dragging it, sparks flying across this parking lot. The girl that first came over, she took off because she had no insurance. She took off, and I went into this flea market, and they were like, "You need $2 to get in." And I was like, "I have no money.
It's just a car accident.
I have no money." So I was like, whatever. I got this girl's license plate. I called it in, and the guy, I guess he was the owner of a gym. I'm not going to say which gym. I don't want to call him out, but he met up with my father. It was my father's vehicle. I was under his insurance, but my father met up with him, and he offered my dad, I think he said something like $20 or $50. He's like, "That's all." It was a Cavalier. He said, "That's all your car's worth anyways. It's just a piece of shit."
Jesus.
Are you serious?
What a dick.
So, like just a complete asshole. And Dad said, "That's fine. We'll just go through insurance." So he called up the insurance. $5,000 later worth of damage. That was a big $20 bill. Yeah, so there was that, and then there was a time I was in a rollover, and that was freaky. That that scared the absolute shit out of me.
I don't know if I've ever been on a rollover. I would like to be.
No, it was terrible. It wasn't as bad. Like whenever we rolled over, we ended up going into a ditch. It was like a swamp, and I thought it was a river. Like we were upside down, and the water slowly started to come up to like my ankles, and because I was standing on the roof after we rolled over, I got myself in position, and the water slowly started to come up to my ankles and then up to my knees, but it stopped right about where my knees meet my hip, and but I was panicking obviously because water was just coming in, and I thought we're in a river or something.
It's gonna keep coming.
I don't know how fast this water's gonna, So we ended up getting out, and we called the cops. They pulled the vehicle out and they drove us home and whatnot, and that was fine. But yeah, no, it was really, really creepy shit. Really creepy. So what else have you been a part of?
Huh?
Your near death. You said something about a little bit of paraphernalia, was there?
Oh, the drugs. Yeah. Oh, it was a good time. It was a good time because I survived.
Yeah. Now that you look back at it.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it wasn't nearly as dangerous as it felt at the time.
Very good. Yeah. Maybe we'll dig more into that in a later episode.
Yeah, we're gonna do a whole episode on psychedelics. Whole one.
Absolutely.
We're gonna deep dive into those, and it's a good story. It was a fun trip.
Yeah. And deep dive into that. We're gonna deep dive into a lot of things, I think. So for all of you guys who have listened and everyone who is listening right now, unless you have anything else you'd like to add in.
No.
Okay,
Tell your mother you love her.
Right. Yeah. Right on. So, I guess just subscribe. We're gonna be coming out with an episode every week. And whether you're on Stitcher or Podcast Addict or
I don't know, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Cast. There's all of them.
Yeah,
we're gonna be everywhere.
Anywheres where you subscribe and get your podcasts. Subscribe, review, and I appreciate all.
Any feedback as to what we could be doing better?
Yeah,
maybe drink a little bit less when we do. I'm stumbling over my words here.
Yeah. We're open to all reviews, open to all suggestions. So with that being said, I'd like to thank everybody, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week, guys.